Ignoring the damage the sword had caused to her jade chamber, Ningguang elegantly crouched down and studied the iron blade carefully. Under the sunlight, the blade gleamed with an icy brilliance. At a glance, Ningguang could tell that this iron ore was of the highest quality, meticulously refined and concentrated. If it were smelted in Liyue Harbor, it could easily yield enough material for dozens of Thousand Eyes army standard weapons. So much raw material, used to make just one sword, even if sold as raw ore, it would fetch millions of Mora. And this was just 2 iron ingots. Keqing had mentioned earlier that in 10 minutes, the 3 of them had mined 46 iron ores, 46 ingots. If smelted, this amount could upgrade the weapons of hundreds of Thousand Eye soldiers. If sold, the profits could easily soar to nearly 1 billion Mora. What a waste. Ningguang felt a twinge of regret. Sensing Ningguang's thoughts, Ganyu nervously picked up the iron sword, clutching it protectively despite its weight. This was Ryen's first gift to her, something Ganyu cherished deeply and hadn't even dared to use. This is truly top-tier iron ore, a rarity throughout all of Teyvat, Zhongli remarked with approval. As the Geo Archon, he could instantly discern the exceptional nature of this iron. This isn't even the remarkable part, Keqing interjected, shaking her head slightly. Ryen said that iron is just the most basic material. Later on, we'll need diamonds, redstone, and lapis lazuli. She paused, recounting Ryen's explanations. Diamonds, he said, are the hardest minerals in the world. Redstone can develop unimaginable technologies. And lapis lazuli, it seems to have something to do with enchanting, capable of transforming weapons into mysterious enchanted gear. That's why I've been saying we need to sign this contract quickly. Ganyu and I promised Ryen we'd go back to explore the world with him as soon as possible. We haven't even ventured beyond the nearby village yet. According to Ryen, the area we've explored is equivalent to a single household in the entirety of Teyvat. Keqing's urgency was clear, and Zhongli couldn't help but smile faintly and shake his head. Even so, he maintained his composed demeanor. I understand the need for haste. However, a cooperation contract cannot be decided so rashly. Draft the initial terms, and I will visit him to finalize the agreement. Turning his gaze to Ningguang, Zhongli continued meaningfully. This matter concerns Teyvat's future, the continuation of its civilization in the distant years to come. It is the most pressing issue at hand. We must approach this collaboration with utmost positivity. Personal matters can be resolved once everything is settled. Although Zhongli didn't say it outright, Ningguang felt as though she was being subtly reminded. While it irked her slightly, after all, she believed Zhongli underestimated her. She maintained her poised demeanor and nodded gracefully. Of course, I'll begin drafting the contract immediately. However, Rex Lapis, when do you suggest we begin this cooperation? Zhongli paused momentarily and glanced at Ganyu and Keqing. As soon as possible. Ideally, we should establish the foundation for cooperation before the rite of dissension begins. Additionally, if Ryen agrees, miners from the chasm should begin relocating swiftly. Liyue's ley lines have borne immense strain in recent years, and the chasm is fraught with dangers. The safety of Liyue's people must always take precedence. In truth, Zhongli no longer wanted anyone mining in the chasm. He knew all too well what lay beneath that place. In the past, Liyue had needed its resources, leaving him with no choice. But now, with a win-win alternative at hand, Zhongli was determined to avoid further harm. Ningguang pondered this briefly and retrieved a blank contract form. Rex Lapis, since we haven't personally seen Ryen's world, it's hard to guarantee that we'll balance both parties' interests perfectly. Moreover, as this is meant to be a mutually beneficial collaboration, Ryen should have the opportunity to voice his own terms. How about we meet with him first and discuss how to finalize the contract together? Zhongli considered her suggestion and nodded slightly. It was true that Ryen had entrusted Keqing and Ganyu with initiating the discussion out of trust in his friends. However, such a significant collaboration warranted a proper attitude and direct engagement. Very well. I will accompany you to meet him. If all goes smoothly, we'll finalize the contract promptly. Hearing this, Keqing and Ganyu exchanged glances and sighed in relief. Yuhun Star, lead the way, Zhongli instructed. Keqing rose immediately, her usual decisiveness evident in her tone. Ryen is temporarily staying in my private residence on Tianhing Mountain. I'm not certain if he's still in Teyvat at the moment, though. Regardless, since we've decided, let's head there. If he's not around, we'll simply wait for him. Keqing wasted no time. As always, action was her priority. As soon as the decision was made, Keqing led the group on their way. Zhongli, however, couldn't help but feel slightly exasperated. Currently, he was still in his fully armored divine form. If he walked through Liyue in such a state, wouldn't the people lose their minds? Before Keqing could take another step forward, Zhongli activated his divine power. A golden glow erupted, linking to the ley lines beneath their feet. In the blink of an eye, the group was transported directly to the gate of the private residence. Keqing blinked, momentarily dazed by the abrupt change. Realizing what had happened, she glanced at Zhongli with an awkward expression. My apologies, Rex Lapis. I was too hasty. Zhongli waved her apology aside, his gaze now fixed on the gate ahead, blocked by a solid wall of birchwood blocks. He stood silently, his brow furrowed. Huh? Ryen sealed the gate? It seems he really has returned to that world, Ganyu remarked with a hint of disappointment, shaking her head lightly. Shall we break it open? Xiao asked eagerly, lifting the iron axe in his hands. Oddly enough, the once imposing conqueror of demons seemed almost excited. Ever since he had started breaking blocks earlier, he found the activities strangely satisfying. There was something inexplicably calming about the neat destruction of the blocks. Even the karmic burdens weighing on his soul felt lighter. If he had to describe it in Liyue's terms, it was therapeutic. Entering uninvited and dismantling someone's property without permission would be impolite, Zhongli said, shaking his head as he examined the sealed gate. Keqing, however, offered a reassuring smile. It's fine, Ryen said. If there's an urgent matter, we can go in and wait for him. He uses these blocks to seal the door, knowing that ordinary people wouldn't be able to get through. Only those of us with the proper tools can remove them. This is his way of letting us know he's not in Teyvat right now. He also mentioned he'll check in regularly at noon and night. She glanced at the sky. It's almost evening. Let's head inside and wait for him. Xiao turned to Zhongli, seeking confirmation. Upon receiving a nod of approval, a glint of excitement flashed in Zhao's eyes. He raised his axe and swung at the gate with enthusiasm. However, his first strike was surprisingly light, barely grazing the surface of the block. Xiao didn't mind and prepared to strike again, until he noticed something strange. The entire birchwood block, instead of breaking apart, had its bark completely stripped off in one clean motion. What remained was a flawless, unprocessed plank of wood. Rex Lapis, this. Zhao's astonishment was evident as he turned to Zhongli. Ningguang, however, had already seen Keqing perform similar feats before. She nodded calmly. Conqueror of demons, this is normal. Keep going. Normal? Xiao frowned, glancing at the others. Ningguang's matter-of-fact tone, combined with Ganyu and even Madame Ping's unfazed expressions, left him momentarily speechless. In the end, Xiao chose to remain silent. The sheer absurdity of it all had rendered his questions irrelevant. Still gripping the multi-ton tool in his hands, he decided to let it go. If they said this was normal, then he'd just have to accept it. After all, this world was nothing if not unpredictable.